Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I am so excited and delighted to welcome Julie Taylor for kicking off our 4-part series on self-employment. I'll turn it over to Julie in a minute for her to share a little bit about her background, but I have to say that our core team, the IC's core team, has been talking about self-employment as a great community of practice or webinar series. And Julie was the person that first came to mind by any of the experts I reached out to as like the very best individual to ask to be part of this. And I think originally Julie's schedule didn't allow it. And then there were some changes that opened up. And so I am just thrilled and incredibly excited to get Julie to work with us over these next 4 sessions in not only understanding more about what self-employment is and what it can be, but really then hopefully diving in a little bit deeper to help us really maybe have a nice just basis for if we want to explore more in this arena. An hour and a half is never really adequate to take things very much in depth. So I wanted to start by thanking the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council for their support with our platform and with our closed captioning today that's offered. So thank you very much, Iowa DD Council. I'm Amy Dessenberg-Wines. I manage the Iowa Coalition for Integration and Employment. We have been doing a monthly Employment First community of practice now for, I don't know, maybe about 10 years. And we're hoping to continue that and continue to bring some expertise and information and to you on a monthly basis, and also to learn what you're doing out there in the field that is working well that we can share with each other and build on. So I'm going to turn this over to Julie. Welcome, Julie. Thank you so much for your time today and your work with us.
Thank you so much, Amy. That's a lovely introduction. I will do my very best to kind of try to live up to it. So, hey, everybody, I am Julie Taylor. I'm with Griffin Hammis Associates. I'm coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. And we're about to get hit with just an awful storm. So we just hope everything kind of lets us do what we need to do here. I don't know if any of you all are familiar with Griffin Hammis Associates, but we're an organization that provides training and support and systems change and policy development, primarily around customized employment and customized self-employment. I know you may know some of my colleagues from Griffin Hammis, and I've been with Griffin Hammis for like 11 years now, I think. I've been working in the field of providing services and supports to people with disabilities for my entire career. So I started doing direct work with people when I was like 19 in college at Ohio State University 100 years ago. And I was the overnight weekend staff in a men's group living apartment. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of thrown into it and had to figure out a lot of stuff. And thankfully, the folks I got to work with were gracious, and we all survived. And from that was born just a real desire and passion for service. And I've had opportunities to work in nonprofits with teen moms with disabilities, which was really interesting. And then I worked for our state agency that provides Social Security disability claim decisions for people applying for SSI and SSDI. I did that for a long time. And then I also, under that same state agency, is our state's vocational rehabilitation agency. And so I moved from the Social Security side of things to our VR side of things, only to lead our state's customized employment project. And this was back in like 2009 and 2000. 2009, 2010. And that is where my entire life changed and my career trajectory changed. What making this as short a story as possible is what I found in that, in leading that project was number one, I just absolutely believed and fell in love with the customized employment approach, and that including the self-employment approach. I was simultaneously working on my MBA. So, you know, I have that kind of as part of my professional educational background. And what I ended up doing after that project was I left my state employment to start my own employment agency to actually do the direct work, because I didn't want to just do policy. I didn't want to, you know, deal with those kind of things. I wanted to do it. And our focus really was not I started my own agency in 2013. I just closed that agency about a year and almost 2 years ago now and retired from that. We primarily provided customized employment support with some self-employment support. I'm going to share one story, a self-employment story of a gentleman that I worked with, and that has been successfully self-employed for like 8 years now. For that, you know, out of the work that we did. And so I did that for a while, simultaneously working with Griffin Hammis. And when I retired from my company, I am now with Griffin Hammis full time. I've had the pleasure of working all over the country since COVID. I work all over the country, right from my dining room now, mostly, right? But I used to travel to just all over the place and worked with veterans and worked with state agencies and small providers and families, and still get to do that. Right now, I do a lot of content development. I do a lot of work on Griffin Hammis has a 5-year self-employment project under the Federal Rehabilitation Services Administration that is really focused on changing our VR system and opening up our VR system to provide better support for self-employment. The self-employment rates in VR of like people who get to pursue self-employment and have a successful self-employment closure are they hover around 1% on average across the country. And that's not saying like lots of people are getting to explore self-employment and being unsuccessful. That says almost nobody even gets to explore self-employment. And so it's at the federal level, they're saying, we know that self-employment is a great option. We know that there are a lot of supports available, and we really want to kind of transform this system from the VR perspective and open those doors. And then also, have that move out into our provider networks and our families, and, ensuring that people have options. And so that's kind of what I've been up to, right? And so I'm excited to share a little bit with you about self-employment. It's something that I love talking about. It's something that I have done myself, in addition to owning my employment agency, which started with just me and one other employee, and it grew to having 25 employees. I've been self-employed. I have been a self-employed caterer, and making homemade pies and selling them at farmers markets, and have dabbled in different small little ventures, turning my interests into self-employment activities. And so maybe through the 4 times that we get together, I'll tell you a little bit about those experiences. So as we talk today, definitely at any point, if you have a question or a comment, go ahead and ask it right then. Like raise your hand or unmute yourself or wave at me or whatever you need to do. You can also pop stuff in the chat, and I think Amy and I will monitor that to make sure that we're paying attention to what your questions are. I think that would be easier than saving everything for the end. So just kind of as we go through, let's talk about it. I definitely invite you to participate. I've got a couple of questions for you as we kind of get into some of these topics. And so I find that when I can share a lot of my excitement, and that's sort of interesting, but I find that for the most part, when you all like bring your perspectives. It's definitely a richer experience for everybody. So I absolutely invite that. And I hopefully we'll all benefit from hearing from you. So let's talk about self-employment a little bit. Just as you know, like today, we're going to get into a few specific things. We want to think about self-employment today as a person-centered approach. We want to think about it as something that's very flexible, and that it is a viable option with the proper support for many people with disabilities. Self-employment offers a number of benefits, and we're going to look at what some of those common benefits are. Definitely the financial benefit, the career development benefit, and the opportunity for people to like contribute. These are really high up on that list, but we'll explore those things further. A few objectives for our time today that hopefully we can get through. We're going to explore the benefits and challenges. We are going to talk a little bit about the myths and like what are our belief systems around self-employment? Like, why are we so afraid of it? We're going to look at a couple of examples. Well, I'm going to share one story, but we'll look at some other just kind of trends today. And then we'll talk about some of the key supports that are available that can help people be successful. Just double check on the chat here real quick. Okay, looking good. All right, so first of all, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about what self-employment is. And we think it's kind of self-explanatory, but just want to make sure, because there are different terms that we use sometimes. So we're going to be looking at self-employment as work through which income is earned directly through one's own business or trade, rather than working as an employee for another business, right? So it's like it's not wage employment working for somebody else. Sometimes self-employment is referred to as business ownership. Sometimes people talk about like self-employment and business ownership as being kind of different. Self-employment being like, it's just me, I'm the only worker, and I, don't have any employees. I'm a owner operator, a sole proprietor, and that is definitely self-employment. Sometimes people think about business ownership as that same definition, or as somebody who has employees, but there really isn't like a rule about, you can be self-employed and have employees. You can be a business owner and not have employees. So there's no like real rule around it. I will probably refer to most things as self-employment, but if I say business ownership, just know today we're talking about the same kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit about self-employment and kind of frame things up so that we understand self-employment as a solution. Like, why is it even important for us to talk about it? So as you all probably know, for many years, the definition of disability in our perspectives meant not able to work. And this has, for decades, resulted in very limited opportunities for career exploration, for opportunities to work in general, for learning about work in the community. For a long time, the only option for a lot of people with disabilities has been to spend their working lives in non-work settings like activity programs, sheltered work, or even just at home, and never exploring, never working, and never really earning an income that is enough to help someone move forward. Self-employment is one solution to those challenges, right? To the chronic problems of unemployment, to underemployment, that so many people with disabilities have faced and continue to face. Self-employment is an option that works for people with significant disabilities of all types. And so I want to frame that up right now, knowing that as we talk about self-employment, we're going to talk about the myths. And what I want you to know is when we're talking about this, we are not talking about gatekeeping self-employment in a way that it's only for people that are incredibly independent and, can exhibit, pass some kind of a special test or something like that. We're talking about self-employment as an option for anybody, with creative supports that keep it really person-centered. So let's challenge if you're thinking, oh, she must be talking about this person, or this, maybe we don't serve someone like that. Know that we're talking about anybody, okay? self-employment and customized self-employment, which is really the approach that we use at Griffin Hammis. And we'll get into that a little bit today, but we'll definitely talk about that in our next session. But the strategies we use are focused on the ideas that everybody has something to bring to the community. Everybody has a gift, has talent, has some kind of strength, some kind of skill, interests, preferences, and a basic ability to be competent workers when they have the right support and work that really matches with who they are. We also know that people have more likelihood of success in work, whether they're wage employed or self-employed, when they have choices and when they're empowered to learn how to make choices, real choices, when they have respect, when they have support, when they have hope for their future, and when they have one-on-one individualized opportunities that are all together help them move forward to have a solid economic future, as well as just a holistic like satisfaction with life in general. So when I start thinking about self-employment, and kind of just getting us thinking about it, I like to make sure that we're not thinking about it as some kind of lofty pie in the sky notion. Many people enter the world of work through self-employment. And so I'm curious with you all. I know that some of this is true for myself as a 9-year-old selling lemonade, dabbling in my entrepreneurial exploits, becoming a babysitter at 13, which looking back, I'm like, why did anybody let me do that? But walking dogs, mowing lawns, things like that. So think about in your own life, have any of you ever been paid for some of these things? Babysitting, mowing lawns, newspaper delivery, washing cars, selling lemonade, dog walking, cat sitting, and even now, like Uber driver, or doing, some kind of, using a hobby to bring in a little bit of money. I see Donna. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Donna. What are you thinking? You're still muted, by the way, too. I don't think I can unmute you. You'll have, Donna, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great. People doing self-employment. I do some on the side of what I do now too. So
what do you do? What's your side gig?
Real estate.
Okay. That's a big side gig. That's no mowing lawns, Donna. That's a big deal. Awesome.
Thanks.
Did anybody else have an experience of self-employment, either currently or in your childhood?
I owned a food truck back when I was able to walk. I'm now in a wheelchair. I was a chef for 11 years, and I owned a food truck for 2.5 years. But that got too physically demanding for me, and I had to kind of give up my culinary career.
What was your specialty?
Anything and everything, as long as I didn't have to bake.
All right. See, something people don't understand, I think, if you have not worked in the food industry, that is hard work. That's, similarly with me starting a little catering business and, I started by making the picture actually on the screen as some stuff I catered for a wedding like 10 years ago. Having to, making 25 pies in the morning, starting at 5 a.m. and like you're back. I couldn't do it. I mean, that's really kind of the reason I was like, this was fun. I learned a lot, but this is not something I can continue. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's a cool thing. Diane, how about you?
Oh, I haven't done much of I haven't done much, but I have a daughter who's done a ton. Starting when I told her that she had to get a job at age 16, and she told me that she wasn't going to because she was going to start her own baking business, which I thought, okay, good luck buying gas with that. And it turned out that she had all through high school, she had a very successful baking business. And then she baked these cookies, and there were some guys who figured out they could buy the cookies, sell most of the cookies, like basically she got a distribution channel going within Waukee High School. And we couldn't use our kitchen for all of senior party time for like 2 years. But yeah, she was super successful, and now she has a really strong Etsy business. She's like 28 now. I don't think she's ever not been self-employed. I mean, she's also had other jobs at this point, but yeah, it's been crazy.
It's so self-employment is more common than we realize, right? And you know, as we talk about self-employment throughout these 4 sessions, we are going to be thinking about, you know, helping people with self-employment opportunities that aren't just little hobbies, right, where they're earning a little bit of money, but how they can grow those to actually be able to bring in wealth. Like it sounds like, Dan, that's something that's like your daughter dabbled in it, maybe a little hobby, and then has been able to grow it. I remember when I first got the idea for catering, it was way before 10 years ago. I was a military wife back in a million years ago too. And I made pies for soldiers. I lived in Germany for a few years, made pies. Soldiers would pay a ton of money for a homemade pie. And I just got this idea, and I did that for a little while. And then I kind of, you know, came back here and worked in state government, and but then decided to try that again. So anyway, lots of us have dabbled in self-employment. And so it's just, you know, think about just how common that is. You know, even if it's short-lived, even if it is just a chance to explore, it is a common way to learn about work and to learn about ourselves as workers. Let me check the chat really quick. Oh, okay. Thank you, Amy. It looks like you put the doc in the chat, right? Okay. I think that's the slide deck. So let's think about a little, look at a little bit of data around what self-employment looks like in the US right now. This is the stats that I have pulled up, or the most recent that I could find within the US Small Business Administration. And they're going to talk about small business here. And so this incorporates some self-employed people as well as businesses that employ people. There's an owner that started the business, and then there are workers. But in general, what the thing I want to draw your attention to is that small businesses, self-employed or with or without employees, they represent 99.9% of all businesses in our country. Small, 99.9%. And the way the U.S. Small Business Administration defines small businesses are that they have less than 500 workers, which to me just sounds humongous. Like having 25 employees just seemed like it was no longer a small business. So it kind of incorporates a pretty big spectrum of like you single, you know, sole operator, and then somebody with 500 employees, but that's how they look at it. Small businesses account for like almost 2/3 of all new businesses and new net jobs like that are available as well. So this is a huge self-employment and small businesses, huge driver of our economy, right? And then also of like our employment and our ability to, you know, keep workers working. So again, self-employment is not this. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I found out yesterday, John Deere assembles things, but they do not make anything. Like it's all small businesses in the area that make all the parts.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then all of those small businesses send those to John, and John Deere puts everything together, but they farm out all the making of things. I just thought that was interesting.
It's fascinating. It is. It's fascinating. It absolutely is. Great. Thank you for bringing that up. It's, you know, I think that when we think about small businesses, this is something our, one of the founders of Griffin Hammis Associates, Carrie Griffin, I just remember him telling me this when I was first meeting them and learning about all this stuff from them, that, you know, he lives in rural Montana, outside Missoula, out there. And he lives on what used to be a gravel road that's like a mile long that has, you know, homesteads built along it. I think they've paved it. But what he says is there are like 10 small businesses on his street, none of which have a sign, right? They're just somebody's making something for John Deere in their garage, right? And selling it. And or they're not making it, they're some kind of intermediate supplier. So small businesses everywhere, we don't always see it, right? And that's the same for, what we know about a lot of the small businesses that people with disabilities are looking to start. People aren't looking to start John Deere, they're looking to supply, right? They're looking to be a part of that economic food chain in some way. And so we'll take a look at what that looks like. Besides like these general statistics about small business, I want you to I guess here's a little pie chart that kind of represents what this actually looks like visually. So there's a circle here, and the circle has 3 different parts to it. One is a very small pie piece that says small businesses with 20 to 499 employees represents this very small portion of all of self-employment or small businesses. And there's a little bit of a larger chunk of pie that says businesses with 1 to 19 employees. And then there's a giant, I don't know how many, what is that? 3/4 or something of the pie, is telling us that the vast majority of all small businesses have no employees. Only the worker, the owner of that business is the only one that works and does the work. And this is across the country. This is what small business looks like. So very, very small. We think about these small businesses as micro enterprises. And very often when we're helping someone with a disability start a small business, we're starting a micro enterprise, a very small business. Micro enterprises are typically defined as businesses employing between 1 and 5 workers. They're generally operated just to support oneself and one's family. There isn't, we all have financial goals, and we want to make a profit, of course, to be sustainable. But most people aren't getting into it to be the next huge thing that's going to go viral and make a gazillion dollars. It's like someone just wants to make enough money, like do what they love and make enough money to meet their needs and, have a little bit of wiggle room. Micro enterprises are, sometimes funded by very micro lending. I think we're gonna look, if not today, the next time we get together, we're gonna look at different ways that businesses are funded. But micro enterprises don't typically require a huge amount of a loan or borrowing from family or destroying your life savings or something like that. They start really small. And approximately 81% of businesses in the US are single owner operated organizations, right? Just one person doing their thing and trying to make a living at it. I want to give you some ideas about types of self-employment so that what does it look like? What does it mean to actually be doing this stuff, right? So self-employment will find its way into the community in a number of different ways. One is the home-based business. And many people who are artisanal, who have something that they like, I don't know, Nick, about you, if you ever did anything out of your house, but I did my pies out of my house. We have cottage food. We have a cottage food industry here, which means you can bake and cook stuff at home, and there's all these regulations and stuff, and then you can sell it someplace else. So that's how I got started, because I didn't want the overhead of a food truck, because that's a kind of a big deal, right? But a lot of people start as a home-based business. Maybe they're, woodworking out in their garage, or they're repairing lawnmowers, from their shed or whatever. So people can be home-based. This is a business that's operating from the business owner's home. It's usually very small. It doesn't have a storefront. So there's no place, no one place that they go every day to do the work or to sell things. And then it sometimes is regulated by zoning or other regulations related to what you can do at home. And that varies from community to community, state to state. But home-based businesses are one of the outcomes. Another one of the outcomes is commercially based business. And this is a publicly accessible location, like a storefront. There are always zoning considerations for things like this. Typically, you can't turn your home into a storefront unless you have zoned for something like that. So you go to a center of commerce to do that. There's usually for commercially based businesses, signage, parking, and accessibility for a building. Another type or like kind of location for self-employment is a business within a business. So this basically means that a self-employed person makes some kind of an arrangement with another business, maybe that's larger, maybe that has some space, a sales floor, or like a warehouse or something like that, to do some part of their operations through another business's space. Both businesses is like kind of like a mutually beneficial arrangement. Both businesses benefit because they're providing complementary products and services. It could be that the customer comes into this, to this lumber yard, and then they also find that there's somebody there that's, making something specialty that that they wouldn't otherwise be connected with. This kind of thing, usually the host business either takes a cut of the profits, or they have it like a set fee for renting space or something like that. And then the self-employed person gets the benefit of being able to just grow a little bit outside of their home-based business and not have the commitment of having their own building. We've seen this work out for a number of people with disabilities who are starting something really small, who are ready to grow, but not ready to commit to rent or something that's bigger than that. And then, of course, very popular, especially since the pandemic, has been this kind of tremendous growth in freelancing or becoming an independent contractor. And this means you can work anywhere. It's it depends on the kind of work you do or who you're working for. But this is an opportunity to provide specific services to clients on a more of a short-term basis, like an Uber driver. I pick you up, I take you where you're supposed to be. Our deal is done. That's all we had, right? With me, if I had an order for catering, it kind of worked as an independent contractor. Somebody would tell me what they needed. I would make it, deliver it, we're done. There's no expectation of ongoing work, although sometimes there's a contract that, says that this will be, we'll do this for a period of time. And independent contractors or freelancers can be any of these other things. You can be home-based and an independent contractor. You can be commercially based and a freelancer. You can have a business within a business and be an independent contractor. It's more of a kind of just like a structure instead of a place. Any questions about that so far? Thoughts on that? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about our ideas around what it means to be self-employed. What does it take to be self-employed? So if you think about those of you who have some experience, think about in your own endeavor, what did it require of you? Okay. And then if you haven't done that, let's think about, if you think about the self-employed person, what do they look like in your mind? Like, what's your idea of that, of what's required to be self-employed? And you can pop that in the chat, or you are welcome to unmute yourself and tell us a characteristic that you're thinking of. Anybody have one? Self-motivated. Thank you, Misty.
Financial literacy, understanding how to figure out taxes and all that good stuff.
Financial literacy. Okay. Lynn, creative. Amy, passion. Lynn, determined. Any others? Organized. Can manage the fear. That's a good one. Some kind of support. Ding, ding, ding. That's my favorite one so far. Danielle, discipline. You're driving the entire bus. All right. If you think of anything else, go ahead and pop those in, but let's talk about what that looks like. So here are some typical ideas we have about what it takes to be self-employed. So we have ideas that People have to kind of be able to score really high on an achievement test, or be able to take kind of are you entrepreneurial kind of test and pass really high. Which, can I tell you, I have an MBA and I have been self-employed. And the last time I took one of those tests to just kind of see how they worked, I was told that I should not start a business. So it's like, well, it is a little too late for that now. So they're not, well, I'll get into refuting these myths a little bit as we have spent some time together today. So there's this idea that you've got to be able to pass a test. All right. There's also this idea that you have to be so independent in many, many areas. Drive the bus, the whole bus, perform all the maintenance, fill it up with gas, buy it, get the loan, clean it, everything all by yourself. But being able to independently write a business plan, or really independently handle any other aspects of the business. There's this idea that a person has to be able to do that. There is the myth that the person has to be able to manage all the details of the business on their own, including like the financials, that a person has to have an excellent credit history, that the person has to have a spotless background check, that they have to be able to sit through a self-employment course, either in person for like 5 hours, 3 times a week until they pass, or they have to be able to do that independently, like online, and complete that they have to have a really competitive spirit, that they kind of have to have like leadership material, like that personality that's just outgoing and really capable of doing it all. They need to be outgoing and extroverted. They have to be able to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have to be able to and willing to sacrifice everything for the business, and even in like have a life savings that they can invest in getting the business off the ground. And so when we ask, these are sometimes things that come up that we just kind of have this expectation that these are requirements of being an entrepreneur. So I'm showing you a screen right now that has an image of a typical self-employment readiness questionnaire. And what we have found in all of our work and research is that readiness questionnaires are never validated for people with disabilities. So it's very difficult to use some of these questionnaires as any kind of guide for helping someone determine whether or not self-employment is even worth exploring. And yet we continue to use them, and we use them kind of as a gatekeeper so that we just don't even really ever move forward with any type of exploration. So typically the questions that are found on these types of assessments are based on the myths. They are using those myths as that foundation for deciding whether or not self-employment is right for you. They are kind of a pretty biased point of view that self-employment is just too difficult or too risky to even talk about or even consider. And that's that kind of belief system, honestly, that holds us back from having the self-employment be more of an opportunity for people. The questions that we have been asking in VR and in just a number of other programs shut down the conversation around self-employment. They eliminate this potentially viable employment option for many people. And that's just something we want to start thinking differently about. So hopefully, we're going to my intention is, as we talk over these 4 sessions, we will work on dispelling some of these myths. I thought about, for our time today, that we could literally spend the entire time talking about myths and dispelling myths, but I have so much other stuff I want to tell you about. So we'll work that through. We'll work that through our time together and taking a look at all of these things. So I'll tell you a little story about a gentleman named Jacob. And so Jacob is a fellow who, while he was kind of going through that transition age, of late high school, moving into adulthood, he went through VR program and tried to explore some things, to get out and do some work programs that were kind of prearranged for him, that were, he didn't have a lot of choice in them. And he struggled a lot with that kind of that approach. He didn't feel interested. He didn't feel motivated. He didn't feel listened to, and he had a lot of difficulty going along with what was expected for those kind of programs. And ultimately, he was told that they were going to close his case because he wasn't making any progress. And he was cool with that. He didn't want to try anymore. And so he spent a couple of years just kind of hanging out at home. And he sorry about that. He finally had he's a Medicaid waiver recipient, to let you know that. So someone in his on his team, like his case manager, really wanted him to get a chance to try again. And she had heard about customized employment. And so he didn't have an idea about self-employment. He just, was kind of referred to us to engage in a discovery process. So if any of you are familiar with customized employment, you may know that part of that approach is a very community-based, task-oriented, one-on-one approach to learning about yourself and learning about work by trying things out. And that's part of the customized employment approach. Some people use it for supported employment as well. But we were brought in to kind of get started with customized employment and get started with discovery. And so we worked with Jacob and just started by saying, you know what, this is 100% up to you. You're making the choices, you're calling the shots. And so let's just go learn about things you're interested in with no pressure. And so we learned, but just by kind of opening the doors and talking a little bit, that he was interested in horses and that he was interested in dogs, and particularly his dog, and that he liked video games. And so we said, we'll start there, right? And we made just a number of different appointments to engage in different activities. And this is using that discovery process to figure out his skills, to figure out his interests, to learn about what motivates him, to learn about what kind of conditions are important to him. And some of the things that we learned about him were that he has a rich history of having activities and experiences around horses. He participated in therapeutic programs, equestrian type programs. He would ride for fun. He loved horse racing type things and like gambling and going and visiting horse farms. And he had those kind of experiences throughout his life. And so that was just something he had experience and a lot of knowledge about horses. We learned he knew, some stuff about dogs and video games too, but the skills and the interest and the motivation around horses, we established through discovery that he had a lot of knowledge and he had some skills. We also learned that there are a couple of things really important to Jacob besides just the work tasks, but he also really valued making his own decisions about his personal hygiene. So he really valued not being told, you have to shower, you have to change your clothes, you have to wear this special uniform. That was kind of almost like a non-starter for him. Like if he was gonna be told he had to shower, put on clean clothes, or wear a uniform, like he would refuse to do anything. So we learned about that. We learned that he enjoys being outside. We learned that he likes working by himself and not being bossed around, which none of us do, right? We learned that he likes intermittent interactions with people, but that he just really loves to work around horses. And so through our experiences, we got to learn about these kind of things. We engaged in informational interviews and went out to a number of different farms and different programs in our, just kind of general community, to just talk to farm owners and stable owners and horse rehabbers and therapeutic schools and all this kind of stuff, to just to ask them, what do you do? What do you need? How do you take care of your horses? Who does the dirty work? Like what are all the tasks that you have here? And Jacob would go with us to do those things, to meet people, to learn, to try some things out. We got lots of opportunities to get our hands dirty, to feed horses, to groom horses, to clean out a stall, to lead a horse out to pasture, to care for horses that were undergoing some kind of rehabilitation. We learned about all kinds of good stuff. And what we started to see was that in that field, in those barns and so on, that there were, most of the farm owners didn't have any employees really. Like they would hire people as independent contractors to come and do specific things. And so what we ended up helping Jacob to develop, it was a job, self-employment opportunity, where he would be a stable hand as well as provide care to the horses. And though that is a job that is for many, like especially smaller farms, at least around here, that is a job that the person doesn't typically become an employee of that farm. They are self-employed, like subcontractor. And that's how it worked out for him. And we helped him get that started with a little bit of startup funding to purchase like new boots and some gloves and different things that he would need for the work. And our county Board of Developmental Disabilities provided some of that funding. He was able to pay for the self-employment development support using his waiver in Ohio. In our home and community-based waivers, we have it used to be one overarching waiver for supported employment. And within that, you could pretty much do anything you wanted, help somebody find a job in the community, help somebody start a business. Our waiver system has really evolved in Ohio. And now we have several different waivers. Like we have a career exploration waiver, we have a discovery waiver, we have a self-employment plan development waiver, we have a self-employment development waiver. We have all kinds of waivers that you can use as services under the waivers. But anyway, he was able to get support, get help from us via the waiver. That's how we were funded to do the work. And he was able to get some extra money for supplies and things. And we just worked with a few different farm owners to establish, what they needed and what they wanted done. And we started with one farm where Jacob would go and work a few days a week for just 2 hours at a time to just begin to work. And then that time would grow. And then at one point in time, he was going to 3 different farms. And then also, not only, and we, helped him establish the wages that he would be paid and all of that. We helped him with, doing the monthly like Social Security reporting and end of the year reporting. He formed his company as a sole proprietorship, which is simplest type of business structure. And he even did a few of his, a couple jobs every once in a while, like kind of as in kind, where he would get a free riding lesson as part of, just kind of in exchange for some of the work that he would do. But most of the time he was being paid and was satisfied with the money that he was earning. So we helped him get this started, I think in like 2014 or 2015, and he's still doing this work now. I'd kind of talk about it as if it was in the past because my role in it is done. And thankfully, the employment manager that worked for my agency when I had it open, as we closed, she became an independent employment support provider, which is an option here. And she continues to work with him to make sure that he's successful. So that's just an example. It's a very small business. It's a micro enterprise. It is absolutely formed around Jacob's skills, interests, communication preferences, conditions that are important to him. And he earns enough money that, he's able to meet some financial goals. and he has all the support that he needs to be able to do the work. And I've simplified it. I mean, there's a lot that went into like him. He needed to have a coach with him, but like for a long time. And then the coach was finally able to fade and he can work independently. So an amazing story of just what self-employment looks like for one person. Do any of you have questions about Jacob and the work we did with Jacob? Let's move on then. If you think of anything, for sure, let me know. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of self-employment. So I'm going to pause for just one moment because I left my note on a different table because I had a few things I wanted to tell you that I didn't put in the slide. So give me just a minute. If you want to take a breather and get a stretch and like step away for like a minute and get a drink or something, feel free to do that. I will be right back in like 30 seconds. All right. Thank you for that little break. So I could grab my paper.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Julie.
benefits of self. Go ahead.
We got a comment in the chat about just being curious about why Jacob was not eligible for VR services.
Yeah. So at the time he was not progressing with any kind of plan. The self-employment was not something they were offering for him. They wanted him to work with, do career exploration. And the vendors were not finding ways to make it person-centered and valuable to him. He would refuse to go. He would definitely have some interpersonal conflicts out of that's definitely something with him out of when he gets frustrated. He never progressed and cooperated with the plan at the time, and so the case was closed as unsuccessful or unable to benefit.
Can I jump in for just a sec?
Sure thing. Yeah.
I just want to point out, this is so rich in my opinion in so many ways, and such a great comment and question about the VR, how that fit within that structure for this individual. But some of the things I just wanted to highlight a bit from what I was hearing in Jacob's story is, there are a lot of folks who don't find success in just a very traditional structured manner in how we deliver supported employment. And that can be for lots of reasons. And I remember in graduate school for rehab counseling, I had a faculty member once say, somebody wears a stocking cap every day and you're working with them around employment, you need to find a place they can wear a stocking cap every day.
Yeah.
It made me think about Jacob not necessarily being real interested in being told what his hygiene should be, for example, or there's so many nuances that can then create a barrier to success because we've defined it has to be this way and that way. But I'm not sure that the horse is minded that Jacob might not have wanted to wear a uniform, so or shower that day. So when we look at really moving that needle and serving all individuals, those are really good things to consider and to think about, is what is in our system that's creating that barrier. Because it didn't ever sound to me like Jacob didn't want to work. He just didn't want to work in what was prescribed for him in the way it was prescribed. So
that's right. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Reflection, for sure. The clothing thing is just so interesting to me because this was, again, like I said, this was really, really, really important to Jacob to not have to, not want to be told what he needed to, how he needed to look like, or what he needed to smell like, or whatever. And, in the environment where he works, the farm owner is also not in their Sunday best, right? When they're coming out to their barns, to their stables, they're wearing their muddy boots. They're wearing the clothes that can get dirty. And so it's that environment has been perfect. Has been perfect for Jacob. He would not be working if he was required to be prepared in that way every day. So let's talk about benefits of self-employment. Some general benefits that we know for everybody with and without disabilities. So, and we're going to tailor it thinking about people with disabilities. So one of the things is the nature of the industry. So some people become self-employed because the nature of the work they plan to do is commonly done in a self-employed capacity. Jacob is one of those examples, right? We found out through exploration, through discovery, that that's normal. A lot of people are self-employed who do that kind of work, right? Stable hands, hairstylists sometimes, graphic designers, event planners, things like that are often people who are self-employed. So the nature of the industry just lends toward that. If that's something you're interested in, that's the kind of work you want to do, sometimes it's just natural that you would be self-employed to do it. Another benefit is that there is opportunity, and this is varied, right? So some people become self-employed because they know how to make a product, or they know how to provide a service that is in demand. And they find that within their community, there is a market for it. And we will talk over our next 3 sessions about what steps do we take in self-employment to help someone figure out what they want to do, and then just to decide if it's feasible, could they actually make a living doing it, right? So, opportunity is kind of really comes from that idea of saying, hey, there's something out there, and there is a good likelihood that I could actually make some money using my skill or my service or my product and meet a need that's not being met in my community. Another benefit is that it increases the ways we can create employment. So customized self-employment, using that customized employment approach, really holds promise of finding a career path for people that might not otherwise get into the world of work. We are creating options for people when we haven't found like a wage job that they fit into. When we take that approach, we really are looking at getting to know the person really well, developing employment opportunities or self-employment opportunity that's going to match who they are, match their skill sets, and they have a greater chance of having successful work. Another benefit is that people can design their own work around their disability, around their other parts of their life that are important to them. They can design their workflow, they can design their work schedule, they can design their work environment. Another benefit is that people can create flexible work schedules. And again, that we went back to one of those myths was that you have to be willing to work 24/7. And that could be the kind of self-employment opportunity that you create. That for my business, my little catering business, that was not the case. This was just what do I want to do? When I started my employment company, that became 24/7 for a minute, but that was my choice, right? You don't have to have a self-employment opportunity that looks like that. So that flexibility is really important. Like depending on the nature of the business, it might be possible for the person to schedule the work they want to do for times that make sense for them, for days of the week that make sense for them, and then have the work around their other priorities. That flexibility can accommodate, like if you have a need for medical appointments, or if you need an aide to come over to assist with something, when you're at your best, working when you're at your best physically or mentally, what times of day. And so definitely we have that opportunity. Being self-employed does not mean that you you don't have to sacrifice your health and your well-being and all of the other things in your life to do so. For some people, a benefit is being able to work from home, especially if they're starting a home-based business. It might be possible for the person to work from home part of the time and go out into the community. Like for me, when I was doing the catering stuff, I would do my work. I would bake and cook and do everything from home, but then I would take my wares to the farmer's market a couple times a week, or I would deliver them to the event that I was catering for, or I'd have people like make private orders and I would meet up with them. So it was just that combination of what worked for me. But I got to decide when I got started, and I got to decide when I made appointments to go, meet with people. Another really important benefit for many people is this idea of autonomy, really kind of being like in charge of your own life and in charge of your own work, being your own boss, making your own decisions. So autonomy is performing, the work for themselves and not for someone else. This for many people, it can be just very, very fulfilling. I know for me, absolutely, knowing that, that I got to choose, right, how much I wanted to work and how big I wanted this to go, or what kind of boundaries and limits I wanted to put on it. That was really up to me. Not that I didn't have support, and we're going to talk about the importance of support, but we all want autonomy. We all want it. And, many people who haven't been given much choice in their lives, they've been told you can pick this or this, and they don't even know that there's all of this out here. Being autonomous is incredibly powerful. Another benefit is the opportunity to acquire higher income and some assets. And there are a number of different ways, and we'll just to brush over this a little now, and we'll touch on it as we go forward over these coming few months. Depending on the nature of the business, it might be possible for someone to have higher earnings while performing the work as a self-employed person than if they were wage employed. Some of that is related to some Social Security work incentives that are really specifically geared toward business ownership and being self-employed, that allow for people to have some money in the business that isn't counted against their own personal income and resources, to be able to acquire items that they need for work, and without that being counted, and to be able to use some of the earnings from work to do that and have that not be counted at all as part of their income. There are a lot of really wonderful work incentives that allow people to get higher income, in some cases to keep a significant amount of money in their business bank account, and have that not even be factored into Medicaid decisions, to Social Security decisions, and to other benefit type decisions. So that's tremendous wealth building opportunity for people with disabilities. What a novel idea, right? It's very, very overdue. And then also there's access to resources. A tremendous benefit of self-employment is having greater access to resources. So for people with disabilities, when we are doing self-employment right as a service system, we can provide support. We can provide funding for expenses and for purchases that need to be made. We can provide funding for there to be a business expert to work side by side with this person to help them, get started. They can have access to free resources, but they can have funded access to resources. And so that's tremendous. Now, everybody who starts a business has access, and we're going to look at a list of common resources that are available to everybody. But to know that our VR programs, sometimes our state job and family service programs, our counties, our developmental disability organizations, there are opportunities to have startup support, and then sometimes even maintenance support moving forward. So those are some amazing benefits. Is there a benefit that you can think of that I didn't mention? Anything that you were I know of something that's beneficial about self-employment, maybe from your own experience or from your work? I don't know if you can hear it here, but it is thundering. So big time. All right. So some other just kind of lovely byproducts of self-employment, some just additional benefits are things like the sense of freedom that comes from having choice and doing what you want to do, that chance to make a career change, or to even to envision yourself having a career, not even just changing a career, but envision yourself having a career, just being satisfied with what you're doing, right? Getting some recognition for what, for the work that you're doing, people noticing that. Another one is feeling responsible and having responsibility. That sometimes responsibility feels overwhelming, but it also is very, very empowering. Also that job and career growth, and then just just knowing that all the benefits that we talked about that kind of come from self-employment, realizing those and having that job security around, building something and then kind of beginning to reap the financial security that comes with it. I don't want to say that it's all benefits and it's all easy and let's just go do it because it's so simple and whatever. So let's talk about some of the challenges. Be realistic about this, right? There are challenges with self-employment. One of those challenges is that it may take some time to get things started. So if somebody is looking and they need an income right away, self-employment is not going to provide that. It is typically going to take I don't want to say it's going to always be a year. It's going to always be a 6 months. This depends on the type of business, the person, the kind of support that they have, what kind of resources are available. But it's definitely going to take several months to get the planning and the research, the feasibility studies, marketing plans, the team around somebody. And we'll talk about all of these steps in our next couple of sessions. It's going to take a while to get all of that moving, to get to the point where we even say, first of all, we just have to open the gates. And sometimes that takes a minute. Let's just talk about self-employment. Let's explore self-employment. And then as we do that, if we start to see, wait, there's something here. Each one of those is a step and it takes a while to get there. So it does take time. There may be, due to that, some potentially delayed or inconsistent income. Even once we've launched the business and money starts coming in, it takes a while to turn a profit. You have to break even before you start even bringing in, cover your expenses, before you even start bringing enough money to pay yourself. So that's a real factor. It takes ongoing work to build and maintain a business. Typically, it is not just like you do all the planning and you launch it and it's easy, day at the beach from here on out. That's not the case, right? It's going to take ongoing effort to maintain. There are typically no employee benefits. So if somebody wanted health insurance or paid leave or something like that, we are not going to get that right away in self-employment, right? We'd have to cover our costs, break even, start to make a profit, pay ourselves, reinvest in the business a little bit till it could grow. Thankfully, there are, for many people with disabilities, their health care is taken care of if they're able to have Medicaid or Medicare. And then, of course, we have the marketplace options. Me as a self-employed person, I've always, ever since the marketplace health insurance has been available, that's how I've been that's how I've insured my family, because I couldn't, as a self-employed business owner, could not provide that benefit. Another paid leave is another thing that a newly self-employed person may not get. However, if they want to build that into how they will do business from the beginning, that can absolutely be one of those flexible benefits of being self-employed. There are tasks that have to be done. And some of them are very complicated tasks like bookkeeping and taxes, that people see as a challenge. But as we talk about self-employment, one of the main things I want you to realize, and as we wrap things up today, we'll talk about this a little bit, is that the customized self-employment approach assumes there's support needed and support available for someone for those tasks that they either don't want to do or don't have the capacity to do themselves. And when it comes to bookkeeping and taxes, whether or not you have a disability, a lot of self-employed people are not doing that themselves. They're getting help for that. So it's not weird that somebody with a disability would need help. I had, I used QuickBooks software, right? And I would use their help desk, right, to help me figure out what I was doing. And I would get support for my taxes and support for accounting and, all these kinds of things for things. And I have an MBA and I still needed a support for those kind of things. So that's not unusual. That's a pretty normal thing. Same is true for any other aspect of running the business that the person needs support with. When I think about Jacob, Jacob is not going to do his bookkeeping. He's not going to do his taxes. The only thing he wants to know about the money is, can he use his card to stop and get fast food on the way home from work? Like, that's what matters to him. Maybe could he take out a little money to go gamble with his dad? Like, that's what matters to him. He doesn't know about the Social Security stuff. He doesn't want to manage that stuff. He doesn't do his taxes at the end of the year. He has support for those things. What Jacob wants to do is he wants to show up for work and he wants to know what he's supposed to do, clean the stables, refill the water, make sure that the horses that have medical needs are getting the special diets, which he's learned how to do. He wants to interact with the horses, groom them, clean their hooves, lead them out to the pastures. That's what Jacob wants to do. And anything else related to his business is where he gets support. He's the talent. Okay. And then he has a team around him that does the other stuff. So that for some people, there's this perceived lack of support, and it could take a lot of effort to build a support team to fill in those gaps, which can be a challenge with self-employment, but it is a requirement in the work that we do, that there be other people helping out. And then sometimes for some people, there are challenges with startup funding, like just where do you get even a little bit of money to buy a few things that you can then turn into a product, make some money, bring it back in? Where do you get the transportation to get you where you need to go? Where do you get somebody to help you every month report your earnings to Social Security? So the funding can be a challenge, and we will, cover some funding ideas as we go through our sessions. Any questions or comments about those challenges? Those are, just being real about it. Those are realistic challenges that we face with self-employment. So there are some foundational actions that we need to take when we think about pursuing self-employment and learning about self-employment. One of them is that in order to do it right, we have to have creative, person-centered assessments. I've talked about the discovery process. The lights are flashing behind me. I mean, we're really getting stormed here. I think my computer will keep working unless the internet goes out. So heads up on that. Anyway, we want to make sure that we have creative, person-centered assessments available, a discovery process, a really good career exploration process, whether that's for somebody who has no idea what they want to do, or for somebody that comes and says, I would like support to pursue self-employment. They know they want self-employment. We really need to make sure that we're steering clear of those kind of standardized entrepreneurial assessments and getting out into the community to learn about somebody's skills, to learn about somebody's talents, to talk to business owners about how they got started, so that we can start getting an idea of, what might work for this person. We also want to have that focus on identifying and developing skills, growing skills through community-based work opportunities. We also want to use economic development strategies, which include networking, being really connected to our community organizations, and really focused on helping our communities grow by starting a small business that meets a need that isn't otherwise being met. We want to make sure that we connect with existing business owners in our community who can give career advice, who can talk about how they got started, what they have learned, what they do differently, and who can help guide and mentor someone who wants to consider self-employment. We also want to like change our whole idea about employment to embrace this concept that there are truly unlimited ways to make a living in this world. I can't remember whose name it was that was talking about the John Deere, the John Deere supply chain, but like, there's probably some really weird stuff that somebody's making out there in their garage that John Deere's buying from them. And I don't even know what it's called. It's a thing this big and it goes, under the gear shifter or something, but like somebody's doing that, right? And they're making money doing that. So there are unlimited ways to make a living in this world. Some other foundational actions are things like, I think I already shared that with you. So, understanding that there is a fit, an ecological fit, a place, a position for everybody in our diverse community, no matter how small, if you're urban, if you're rural, if you're, a large community, if you're a small community, that there is room for more. Okay. And then also we want to consider that employment comes from the creation of profit. So when we talk about employment, we really need to think about, again, maybe it starts with something someone enjoys doing at home, but ultimately the goal is to help somebody start a business that's actually going to bring in money, so that they can experience growth through personal growth, financial growth through their contribution of their skills. Let's talk a little bit about resources and supports that are available within our communities. And these are available within all communities. So for many people, we have vocational rehabilitation, and self-employment is a service and a support that is required under federal law. We know we've done a tremendous amount of research over the last few years as part of our self-employment project with RSA, but we know that self-employment is absolutely underutilized for just even talking about it, even having that ever be part of someone's goal. People just don't get there, right? And then for those few people that get there, only 1% of all closures, around 1%, are self-employment closures. So VR is a tremendous resource. I was just talking with somebody through like the National Disability Rights Organization yesterday, and we were talking about how much funding gets given back to the federal government on an annual basis, just not used. And so it's not that there isn't money available to explore self-employment. It's that there is not a belief system, there's not attitudes, and there's also not skill within our work as the ones that provide the support. We just don't know how to do it, right? But VR is and should be a tremendous self-employment supporter. We also have community rehabilitation providers. So many of you, many states that we work in have established comprehensive self-employment training programs for providers to learn how to support self-employment, so that, even if VR were to say we love self-employment, there aren't a lot of providers to carry out the tasks who know about self-employment and can really provide the expertise. But when trained and when excited about self-employment, community rehab providers are amazing. There are some states that have built like certification programs for providers to become self-employed experts. Family and friends can be strong supporters. Many people with disabilities start small businesses and have support, unpaid support from family members, or have, when they can pay them, maybe they have paid support from family members or from friends who help them out in some way or another. Benefits counselors. I know somebody had made a comment, and you are a WIPA, right? So you are a work incentive person, essential for self-employment. And so making sure that our benefits assessment professionals really know about the interaction between benefits and self-employment and can give good guidance to people, and just knowing how to use work incentives. That's great. Our small business development centers, those are community-based organizations. They're funded by the Small Business Administration. A lot of times they're housed in like a community college or a local, local university. But these are areas of expertise that's kind of serve as a hub or business incubators or training or mentoring, guidance and advice, and can sometimes even support with some of the steps of self-employment. They can assist with identifying funding opportunities. So that's a great resource. Another resource is SCORE. That's the Society of Retired Executives, blanking out on it. But these are people who used to own their own businesses who have retired, who now they mentor, sometimes for free. Sometimes they have a small fee, for you to come to their training program on how to handle social media or something like that. But these are people who have done it, who will meet one-on-one with you to provide you with great support. Our women and minority owned business centers or minority business development agencies, or like our Office of Native American Affairs, or other specialty organizations like Veterans Business Outreach Centers. These small economic development organizations are what I would say, like if you're helping somebody with self-employment or if you're curious, they're invaluable. You have to get connected to them. They care about helping people who have sometimes been marginalized, right? These are organizations that are based on serving specific people groups, and they are so supportive and so much more open to learning about disability and how to support somebody with a disability. There are a number of different types of micro enterprise development organizations, and then there are also in many of our communities university and college business resource centers. There are a tremendous amount of resources that we don't think about. We kind of think about with the work that we do, that we've got VR and maybe we have the waiver system, and then we have us if we're providers and we got to figure it all out ourselves. And yet we have a rich community that's helping everybody else who wants to start a business, and they can absolutely be part of somebody's self-employment team. I want to pop in the chat for you, and I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second. I know we have just a moment left, but I want to point you in the direction of our own resources at Griffin Hammis Associates. So give me just 1 sec, and I'm going to pull up our website for this project that I've talked about that is with the Rehabilitation Services Administration. I am copying the link to the website into the chat, and it is the centeronselfemployment.org. So this will be here for you. And I'm going to pull this up and share my screen real quick and show it to you. And what we've got here is a very comprehensive and ongoing, continuously, we're adding new things to this website over these years. We're in year 4 of this project right now, but this website has just a tremendous amount of resources and information for you. The most important thing I want you to, in my opinion, I guess not the most important thing. There's probably 3 most important things I want you to take away from this website. Number 1 is there's a training tab. And in this training tab, you will see a conference archive. You will see webcasts, which are, if you click on archives, there are, over the years, we've been doing like 6 webcasts a year where we talk with a community rehab professional. We talk with an entrepreneur with a disability. We talk with, somebody who works from home or somebody who has started a business that's out in the community. So there are a number of different, people kind of telling their stories in these recorded videos. And so, check those out. There's also a series of self-employment courses. So there's one, and I've had the privilege of working on the content for several of these. One of the courses is a business financials training series. So if you love learning about profit and loss statements and cash flow statements and benefits related to all that, dig in. It's like a 4-part series that you can, it's all free. Let me tell you that. Just log in and get it. You can get CRCs and CEUs that will count toward what your work requirements for ongoing training. For any of these for any of these trainings. They're all self-paced, they're all recorded, very, very user-friendly. They're built in like typically around like a 1 hour chunk of time. So you can take 1 hour and come back to another one a month later. And so there's the business financials training series. There's the core self-employment concepts, which goes through concept development, feasibility, business planning, launching your business, maintaining your business, and walks you through what it looks like to do each of these things. There is an orientation to self-employment and telecommuting for rehab counseling students. We've partnered with a number of universities across the country to have actual college courses that are being offered for college credit to introduce self-employment to up and coming VR professionals. But you can also access those courses for free if you're interested. We have for any of you that are kind of on the VR side of things, we have a set of courses called Self-Employment Through the VR Lens, which walks through changing our belief systems. It walks through IPE development for self-employment and what activities do you need to be authorizing and so on. A tremendous rich set of courses. There's a set of courses on telecommuting and that go into like being a self-employed telecommuter. And then what else do we have? That's all we have for now. And then we're developing right now. I just finished developing business structures and like understanding like what does it mean to be a sole proprietor? What does it mean to be an LLC? What does it mean to be a corporation? And whether or not VR will support those different types of businesses. So the training is really important. I also want to draw your attention to not just the training, but to the there is policy and research information, and then there's a variety of resources as well. And someone asked in the chat about this specific question. Misty, you said, has the data shown why self-employment isn't more utilized at VR? And yes, it absolutely has. And there are a couple of articles in these resources that talk about why, like what's happening. There is something that might be very interesting to you, and I wish I could think about in the minute we have left exactly which resource it is. So you may want to get in there and play around. And if I can find it before our next session, I'll have that ready for you. But we actually did a very comprehensive like needs assessment where we asked VR counselors across the country about all kinds of stuff about self-employment. What do you know? What do you believe? Like what's going on? And then, so that's included, and then also just a lot of research around, where are the breakdowns? Why aren't we doing this? And great articles coming out of Virginia Commonwealth University that we partnered with on these projects. So a ton of information on the why behind what we see. So that being said, we're at the end of our time. I'm definitely happy to stick around for a minute if you have any specific questions that we can talk about. I know this is a lot of information for you, and we'll dig deeper into some of it as we go through this series. And hopefully it's interesting to you and maybe something you'll be curious about how you can incorporate it into your work.
Just want to thank you, Julie. I really appreciate it. This is so incredible. Perfect way to kick us off. And just to remind folks, we have 3 other sessions in this series. Our next one is April 11th, 1 to 2:30. We'll send some information out on that. But we have April 11th, May 9th, and June 13th. And we're going to be looking at core concepts, exploration, concept development, feasibility, business planning, how to launch and maintenance of a business, strategies for success. Really going to try to go at least a little deeper so that you feel like you have a nice base to move forward in this area. So thank you so much, Julie. We look forward to seeing you again in April. I will share the information that you put in the chat with the website when I send out the recording as well for today's session. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.